The Republicans release a 1,000-page document detailing the corruption at the FBI and the DOJ. We're going to go through it, not all 1,000 pages, but we will hit the highlights. Merrick Garland, you see here, he is the Attorney General of the United States. He's going to have a lot of questions to answer as soon as the Republicans take over in the House and the Senate, starting with Jim Jordan. He's got a lot of questions for the FBI and the DOJ, and he comes to announce the latest document from the House GOP. Jim Jordan unveils to America 1,000 pages of corruption and disgusting behavior from what Americans believe to be our honest and truthful agencies called the DOJ and the FBI. Unfortunately, as this document reveals, they're not.
Yeah, look, our job is to get the facts to the American people. We've released this report today, which just shows how bad things have gotten at the FBI and the DOJ. It's all driven by politics now over there. And look, we live in the greatest country ever, but America is not America if you have a Justice Department that treats people differently under the law. It's supposed to be equal treatment under the law. That's not happening. And we know it's not happening because 14 brave FBI agents came to us as whistleblowers and told us what exactly is going on here. Started with the school board issue, but it's also this juice in the numbers on domestic violent extremism cases. And then, of course, just the politics that are rampant. They're actually purging now. We've had a whistleblower tell us they're getting rid of conservative Republican-type FBI agents. So that's the problem. Our job is to get the facts to the people. And then let's hope at some point we have a Justice Department that actually holds people accountable for the wrongdoing.
The Great Purge continues. They're trying to do this in the military. They try to do this in maybe your local business or your big business. They're trying to do this now, evidently, in the FBI. Jim Jordan telling us they're trying to expunge, excommunicate, throw out conservative agents in the FBI. Now, there's a lot more where that comes from. We're going to go through the 1,000-page document, of course, because it is just never ending, the amount of corruption and disgusting behavior. But first, my friends, we have to talk about a food shortage. We know that this could be coming. Okay, we've seen a lot of these stories, even in the U.S. They wrote about this as recently as July. Drought, inflation, policies, they're all pushing America's food supply to its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. You can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots survival food and a food kit. Now, this is not your ordinary food. We're talking about good for 25 years, super survival food. Hand-packed right in family-owned facilities here in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water resistant, and they're stackable easily. They have different delicious breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and you can make these meals in less than 20 minutes. All you have to do, add water, simmer, and serve. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase of anything in the store. And there is some good stuff, my friends, including a 3-month survival food kit. You get their famous guarantee for over a year after you order. Plus, you get free shipping on anything that's over $97. They're called 4 Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. And so just go over to 4patriots.com and use code Robert to get 10% off. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert and start building your own stockpile today. Now, my friends, we have to take a look at the actual report from the FBI. The House GOP issued 1,000+ pages. You see here in the top left, 1,050 pages make up this document. It's entitled FBI Whistleblowers, What Their Disclosures Indicate About the Politicization of the FBI and the Justice Department. Republican staff report and the Committee on the Judiciary assembled this, and you can see it was drafted on November 4th, 2022. Over 1,000 pages. I want to show you the table of contents before we hit the bullet points. The table of contents detail for us all 59 of the major pages, in addition to all of the appendices that are attached. But let's break this up here by the main sections. The first section is about FBI leadership abusing its law enforcement authorities. Now, underneath this, right, we've got domestic violent extremism statistics, pressuring and reclassifying, manipulating its case filing system, and so on. We've got sections B, C, D, E, F, and then a whole second section under section 2. So there's a lot here. But before we go through the executive summary, take a look at this warning. On the 5th page of the FBI report, they know that a lot of FBI agents and people at the DOJ are going to be reading this, and they're going to be investigating all of these allegations. And so they put here on page 5, attention, all Justice Department and FBI employees. You have a right to speak with Congress. If your bosses, Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland, are trying to shut you up, guess what? Don't let them. Every employee of the DOJ and the FBI has an unfettered right to communicate with Congress without the approval, consent, or awareness of the department or the FBI. Federal law protects these disclosures. So if you're listening there from the rooms of the DOJ or the FBI, you can contact your congressperson, in particular, Jim Jordan. Whistleblowers are an invaluable source for Congress in identifying, understanding, and remedying waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement. And if you have anything you'd like to share, you can call them at this number, 202-225-6906. Call your local congressperson today and report on the FBI garbage. Now, let's go through the executive summary and hit the highlights on exactly what this 1,000-page document contains so that we don't have to go through all 1,000 pages. We see here, the report writes, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so-called, under the stewardship of Director for Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland, is broken. The problem lies not with the majority of the frontline agents who serve our country, but with the FBI's politicized bureaucracy. The problem lies, for example, with the FBI hierarchy that spied on President Trump's campaign and ridiculed conservative Americans. The problem lies with the FBI bureaucrats who altered and mischaracterized evidence to federal courts, circumvented safeguards, and exploited weaknesses in policies governing institutions and informants. They did this to target politically disfavored subjects and protect the favored ones. We covered all of this when we talked about Sussman, when we talked about Igor Danchenko, Jim Baker, all of them. The problem lies with the FBI structure that centralizes high-profile cases in D.C. in the hands of politicized actors with politicized incentives. Quite simply, the problem, the rot within the FBI, festers in and proceeds from Washington. Quite simply, the problem, the rot within the FBI, festers in and proceeds from Washington. Yeah, the rot. Right out of there. Over the last year, a multitude of whistleblowers have approached the Judiciary Committee Republicans with allegations of political bias by the FBI senior leadership and misuses of their federal law enforcement powers, most of which we've chronicled here. These whistleblowers have risked their careers out of fidelity to principle and commitment to restoring public trust in the FBI. Shout out to our FBI whistleblowers. This report begins to tell their stories. Even at this early stage, one startling conclusion is clear. The FBI and its parent agency, the Justice Department, have become political institutions. This report details the problems, as recounted in whistleblower disclosures and other forms that undermine the FBI's fundamental law enforcement mission. Whistleblowers describe the FBI's Washington's hierarchy as, quote, rotted to its core, maintaining a, quote, system culture of unaccountability, and full of, quote, rampant corruption, manipulation, and abuse. Nice agency, federal agency. Whistleblowers describe how the FBI has abused its law enforcement authorities for political purposes and how the FBI leadership show a political bias against conservatives. For example, the FBI is artificially inflating statistics about domestic violent extremism all across the nation. Is that a surprise to anybody? No, it shouldn't be. We've already talked about Timothy Tebow. We've talked about Jill Sanborn and others at the FBI and the DOJ who have pivoted, making this their entire focus. It's their entire existence. Whistleblowers have described how FBI leadership is pressuring line agents to reclassify cases as domestic violent extremism, even if the matter does not meet the criteria. They also explained how the FBI is misrepresenting the scale of domestic violent extremism nationwide by categorizing J6-related investigations as organic cases stemming from local field offices instead of all related to one single incident. You like that? So what this means is, rather than saying that they're investigating a bunch of a bunch of cases related to one incident and centralizing it all out of a Washington field office, for example, they're saying that all of the various agencies can go and investigate all of the different people in those local states. So all of the different sort of subdivisions of the FBI, the state agencies, state FBI offices can go investigate the people locally and open those up as new investigations. This is an insurrection investigating originating out of Arizona. Well, is it really? Yeah, it is, because the insurrectionist Rob Govea lives in Arizona. So therefore, it's an insurrection investigation that started in Arizona. And that means that there's an insurrection, homegrown domestic violent extremist in Arizona, right? Well, what if, and I wasn't there, I was live streaming here with you, but what if on January 6th, I was in Washington, D.C.? Had I been there, right, you would argue that the nexus of that case, the origination point, would have been there in D.C. And so if they classified this as an insurrection case, it would be in D.C., it would be part of the D.C. insurrection cases, part of the single incident. And it's not, and that would centralize it rather than making it this distributed event that happened all over the country, right? And now they can say, well, Arizona's got a lot of violent extremists, and everywhere you turn, every time a person who's arrested related to J6, there's violent extremism happening in that state. So they're just manipulating the numbers. In both ways, the FBI is fueling the Biden administration's narrative that domestic violent extremism is the biggest threat to our nation. Obviously a ridiculous thing, but that is all they have to run on, and it enables them to take out their political opponents. So it's a good one to run on. The FBI is abusing its counterterrorism authorities to investigate parents who spoke at school board meetings. When the whistleblowers came and talked to Congress, shortly after, the School Board Association urged President Biden to use the Patriot Act against school parents. The FBI Counterterrorism Division set up a special threat tag to track school board related cases. Whistleblowers provided evidence of how the FBI opened investigations into one mom for allegedly telling a local school board, "We're coming for you," and a dad simply because he, quote, rails against the government and, quote, has a lot of guns. How many dads does that describe out there? The FBI has abused, they say, another whistleblower has reported, that they've abused its foreign intelligence authorities to spy on American citizens, including people associated with Trump. Facts have been documented in IG reports from the Inspector General and FISA court opinions. There's little indication that the FBI has changed or that it's willing to change. The FBI, they say, is also clearing the Bureau of employees who dissent from its woke leftist agenda. The report says the FBI is actively seeking to, quote, purge FBI employees holding conservative views, or in President Biden's view, those that are, quote, a threat to American democracy. Because they hold conservative views, the FBI has even taken retaliatory actions against at least one whistleblower who has spoken out. The whistleblowers continue. They say that they've explained how the FBI is politically meddling, how it's dragging the criminal side of the Bureau down and resources are being pulled away from real law enforcement duties. One whistleblower described how he was told that child abuse material, yikes, were no longer an FBI priority. Oof. Whoa. He was told that CSAM, investigations were no longer an FBI priority and should be referred to local law enforcement agencies. They've got bigger fish to fry, like insurrectionists. So that he could work a Washington-directed, politically charged case instead. Isn't that interesting? Way worse to be a Republican. Such a misprioritization is not only a dereliction of duty, but it's a grave disservice to the victims of crimes that do not advance the FBI's agenda. The examples, they say, outlined in this report concern FBI abuses and misconduct primarily, due to the experience of whistleblowers and the conduct to which they were exposed. But because the FBI is a compartment of the DOJ, it's virtually impossible to examine the FBI's actions without also examining the DOJ. For example, in creating a threat tag to track investigations into parents, the FBI was executing a directive from Merrick Garland and the department. In addition, the recent examples of misconduct must be examined in the context of years of serious abuses from the FBI. And so for context and explanation, we'll discuss some of that here. We get a beautiful history lesson. They tell us, the FBI has a troubling history of using its authorities to advance political goals. Under J. Edgar Hoover, the Bureau surveilled Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., engaging in an intense campaign to discredit him. After 9/11, terrorist attacks occurred. Then Robert Mueller, FBI director at the time, sought to change the FBI's culture to produce a centralized, intelligence-driven organization. With its new structure, the FBI leadership began running investigations out of headquarters rather than out of field offices, something that had been the routine for nearly a century. Mueller started the trend of filling leadership positions with Washington bureaucrats who lacked the institutional knowledge of career agents. And from information provided by these whistleblowers, all these problems continue to this day. The DOJ's a disaster. They turn it over to Director Wray at the FBI. He begins after James Comey's disastrous tenure, wrecking the FBI there, when the Washington Bureau's leadership used the power of federal law enforcement to attack Trump and his campaign. Wray had an opportunity to clean up the agency, but he didn't. They say, by any measure, Wray has failed. The House says that Americans deserve to have confidence in the enormous power of the federal law enforcement. FBI has power quite literally to ruin a person's life, and they do regularly, to invade their residence, to take their property, and to deprive them of their liberty. The potential abuse of this power, or even the appearance of abuse, erodes the fundamental principle of equality under the law and confidence in order. The FBI's tremendous power is precisely why the people's elected representatives in Congress must conduct vigorous oversight, especially in light of these allegations, and this transcends all politics. This report presents so far what's known. There is likely much more to be uncovered in the months to come, but it's clear that the FBI needs repair. Too many whistleblowers have said that they're saddened by what they see happening. Too much is at stake to just sacrifice this all. The necessary first step in fixing the program of broken culture is to identify and understand the problem, and this report begins to do that. And so as we saw, there's a lot to this. We're not going to read through it all, but Section 1, FBI leadership, right? I mean, this goes on. Just here, I'll just give you the quick scroll down. Now, when we get past page 59, you see we have got all sorts of letters attached here. These are prior letters that I think we've covered many times previously. That they've sent month after month after month. Okay, so this one, June 14th, right? It's 1,000 pages of all the letters, essentially. All the different attempts that they've tried to send to get answers from the FBI. And you can see it's just shocking how much. This is what Congress sends over to the FBI and the DOJ. We're still going. I mean, we're on page 175, 77, 78, 79. Can you please let us know what you jerks are doing over there at the DOJ? Can you please tell us what the FBI does investigating parents? Letter. Look at all these. Andy Biggs, Tom McClintock, Tiffany, Chip Roy, Victoria Spartz, on and on and on. No answers. Nobody responds. We know that they just call and call and call, write and write and write. It's just like a big joke. So what's the point? What is the oversight? What is the point of the oversight committee? All they do is just draft letters. 1,000 pages, no answers. Here we go. Just keep going. I mean, we could do a whole stream for 3 hours on this. Just scrolling. All right, you get the point. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that is what's going on. 1,000 pages of FBI and DOJ corruption on display. FBI, DOJ just not even responding. They've got bigger fish to fry, like insurrectionists. Chuck Grassley in Iowa joined the campaign trail with Donald Trump, seeking re-election, says that if he's back in charge and the Republicans win the Senate, they are coming hard at the FBI and the DOJ. Grassley has been trying for a long time to get answers from the FBI. We've listened to him with Christopher Wray in front of the Senate. Christopher Wray told him, hey, old man, are you done here? I have to leave now. I have to get on an airplane. And he left him. Totally disrespectful. And they don't respond to any letters that were sent previously. Now, Chuck Grassley from the podium there in Iowa is responding. Grassley says if Republicans win, we're in charge now, and there are going to be serious repercussions for you, DOJ.
I've got several things to say today, but one thing that I want to start out with, so you can have confidence in me if I'm reelected, I'm not going to give up on trying to get political bias out of the FBI.
Get it out
of here. And I'm not going to give up on my investigation of Hunter Biden and other Bidens.
A lot of questions about
those. Because we follow the facts and we follow the money where it leads us. And there's plenty of money to follow if you've been following it.
Chuck Grassley running for Senate, and hopefully he gets reelected so the Republicans hang on to that seat and he can deliver on his promises and continue the investigations that should have been completed a long time ago if we had any active journalism or functional FBI or DOJ in this country. Unfortunately, we do not. Ted Cruz is also supporting the cause. He is not up for a close reelection, but he is on with Fox News. And you take a look at what Senator Ron Johnson was talking about here. They're hitting this Hudson West 3 bank account of Hunter Biden. You can see all of the connections between all of the different companies. We've talked about many of these before. And they're saying that when they get back in charge, they are going to be investigating them. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, says if the Republicans win, and he thinks they will, there's going to be repercussions for the Democrats. All sorts of investigations into Hunter Biden. The FBI, the DOJ are on notice that there will be more questions that they this time will have to answer.
And now under Joe Biden, they are out in the open. And under Joe Biden, this is the most political and the most corrupt Department of Justice we've ever seen. We see the FBI storming President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. That's never happened in the history of our nation. We see FBI agents storming pro-life activists, machine guns drawn at the crack of dawn with their children crying. And I got to say, Merrick Garland has done more to undermine and damage the integrity of the Department of Justice than any attorney general in history. And that includes John Mitchell, Nixon's attorney general, who resigned, was prosecuted, and went to prison. Merrick Garland is doing even more damage
to the entire country. And I think he's right about that. We have seen under Merrick Garland all sorts of precedent broken. He feigns a separation while he raids Trump's house. We see him indulging and prosecuting all of the J6 cases that are referred over from an illegally constituted committee. He says to America that he's a law and order guy. Meanwhile, he's breaking all of the precedents that have existed for some time in this country, and they existed for good reason. You don't just trample over those things. Otherwise, you have some damage that you cause to the country. But evidently, they don't care. They think that all of this is necessary in order to keep Trump on the sidelines. We'll see if that works out for him. I'm not so sure that it will. But that, my friends, is the update on the story. 1,000 pages of corruption, all detailed by the House GOP. And of course, the full report is available at the GOP website, the House GOP Judiciary website. So you can look that up there. But that is the corruption we'll continue to cover. Thank you for joining us, liking this video, and subscribing wherever it is you're watching this.